up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Real Heroes Show. We've got Corey, Nick, and Ben, a possible newcomer. He's only been in one video before. Go back and check it out and see it. Here on the show today, we're talking about Amazon's new series, The Wheel of Time, on Amazon Prime. I'm a poet and I didn't even know it. Very excited. They dropped the first 3 episodes over the weekend. We got the chance to check them all out. We're going to break all of them down for you in this video. There are going to be spoilers. There are also going to be book spoilers because Ben is an intelligent human being and he has read these books several times. So unlike Foundation, we have an expert.
Yes.
And we won't make a bunch of mistakes. We're going to make a bunch of mistakes, but hopefully less than we normally do. So, Nick, how are you today, sir? Are you getting ready for Gainsgiving?
I sure am. I'm not eating as much this week in prepping for Thursday. And yeah, I'm not counting calories that day, that's for sure.
No. Yeah. Are you working out that day?
Probably not. I'm gonna.
All right.
It'll be a big leg day on Friday is what I'm aiming for. So
Yeah.
well, I almost think the gym's gonna be super packed, so I might hate it, but
Probably.
Yeah, we'll see.
Cool, man. Well, Ben, you're up in the Northeast. Are you freezing your ass off up there or what?
Oh yeah, absolutely freezing to death.
Yeah, what was the temperature when you woke up this morning?
28 degrees, and that's Fahrenheit, not Celsius.
Oh man.
Yeah, we're all native Floridians here, but Ben is up there visiting family, and that just sounds like a shock to the system if there ever was one. So
yeah.
Whew, Lordy. All right, so let's dive right into this. Like I said, we're going to break down each of the first 3 episodes piece by piece. So we're going to start out with episode 1, which is entitled Leave Taking. And here come my horrible synopsis. In this episode, we meet Moraine, who is a member of the Aes Sedai, which seems like a pretty powerful group of witches. We also meet the rest of the cast on Emmons Field. And if I'm mispronouncing all of these, please let me know in the comments. Moraine wants to take 4 of them to the White Tower because she is of the belief that one of them is the Dragon Reborn, which is kind of like a chosen one trope. However, before they can do that, a group of monsters called Trollocs, who are led by a very creepy eyeless creature on a horse, attack their village, and a huge battle ensues. So, Ben, I'm going to let you kick this off because this book series is like your Harry Potter. One, what was it like to see some of this stuff come to life and like actually be like a real visual thing that you can see? And how did this compare to the way some of this stuff goes down in the books?
All right. Well, first question. Yeah, it was really crazy to be able to see something that you read about and you've read so many times, pretty well faithfully recreated on screen. Trollocs are as terrifying as I imagine them, and it's really fun to see Moraine just sort of go crazy and show everybody just why she is not a woman to be trifled with.
Yeah.
Yeah, she just. I think my favorite part is a lot of it was taken straight from the books. Some of it wasn't. I'll go over that in a second, but just the one of the things that I always remember from that chapter, and this first episode covers about the first 4 chapters of the first book.
Okay.
Was when they talk about Moraine having called down lightning from a clear sky, and just and seeing it visually was just stunning.
Did it get a little dusty in your room by chance?
That's our
definitely
code
when we cry
definitely some goosebumps.
Nice.
Especially awesome. Because as in the books, it's all spoken of after the fact. So the books operate as a lot of these multi-character books do, as point of view books. Mm-hmm. So for that whole beginning, Tam and Rand al'Thor go to the town to drop off everything for Beltane, and then they go back to their farm and they stay the night, and that's when the Trolloc attack happens. One on the village itself and one on the al'Thor farm. And you do get the scene where Tam takes out the sword and Rand just goes, "Where is that sword and why does he know what to do with it?" And then, but you hear after the fact, because Rand wasn't in the village at the time,
right,
that Moraine is calling down ball lightning out of a cloudless sky. And that's sort of her introduction to us as an Aes Sedai. So before that, everybody just thinks she's some fancy, some lady from a big city, maybe a minor noble. She doesn't go around flashing her great serpent ring like she does in the show so often.
Interesting. And you said that, I think you texted me and said that a lot of the when they're doing the channeling, right, which is how they use their magic. In the books, it's like a lot of just like intense staring, right? Like there's not a lot of hand movement or whatever, but obviously for the show, they got to change that up, right?
Yeah, there's a scene in a later book where I think Robert Jordan threw all of us book readers a bone and said, there are two women having just an epic channeling battle, and to anybody who walked by, it would just look like they're staring at each other intently. So non-channelers, even so far as so only women who can channel can see other women channeling.
Wow. Okay.
Interesting.
So it's it's even back in before times when they talk about when there were men channelers as well. Men could not see what women did, and women couldn't see what men did. They just sort of
the dream has become reality, folks.
Wow.
She can't see my Amazon list. It's come on, Bezos, send the check, damn it. I'm pimping Amazon here.
Yeah, so it was really interesting to see it visualized, and I think they did a really good job visualizing it, because otherwise just having Rosalind Pike standing there staring and then Trollocs exploding would have been fun, but not visually engaging.
Right.
And she does make one explode too. I don't know if y'all caught that one.
Oh, I did.
Blows up.
My favorite was when you don't see it coming, but the axe flies from behind the Trolloc and then just right into his back, and I was like, all right, this is interesting. She's throwing fireballs, she's throwing bricks, the whole tavern comes down. Like, it was a pretty impressive display of power. And Rosamund Pike is fantastic. If you haven't seen like Gone Girl or I Care a Lot or any other movies she's in, she's a huge get. If this is going to be, I think they said 8 seasons is the goal for this show.
A lot.
That's a long time to sign on a movie star like her. So that's some pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, I feel like she's the biggest known actor in the show.
Mm-hmm.
So if they're going to keep her around for however long she is in the books, then she's going to, lead the way. And I did think that's pretty interesting, because I know she was great in these episodes. And it almost seemed like this wasn't something that she would normally do, maybe based on her past performances. And I'm like, man, she pulls off this fiction, like this fantasy fiction stuff so well.
Yep.
And I mean, but that just kind of goes to her being just a great actress.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree with you guys. The effects, that whole town scene was just epic. I mean, the Trollocs, the fighting, and then one part that I'm not really attached to these characters yet. I haven't read the books or anything, but I had a moment in the show, or rather in the episode, when Perrin swings his axe back and kills his wife Layla, and I was like, oh shit. I felt so bad.
As a book reader, you kind of saw that happening, because here go book spoilers, y'all.
Yes.
Perrin isn't married in the books.
So
interesting.
In fact, the characters have all been aged up about 5 years. So they're about 13, they're about 14, 15 in the books.
Oh wow.
Maybe as old as about 17, if I remember. So none of that happened, no kids on the way, none of that stuff. So that was one of the first things I wrote down on was going, Perrin's married? ? Exclamation point. And then Perrin has a child on the way, and then Perrin accidentally kills his wife in a rage. And I was like, well, that's a very short time. Yeah, that didn't last very long.
That's what happens when you meet people on Tinder in the Wheel of Time. It doesn't go well for you. That's in my head canon. There's some form of ancient swiping that goes on. You pick to mate that way. So Nick, my one question that I had for you, and this is kind of about all 3 episodes, but mostly this first one. You're such a big Lord of the Rings guy.
Mm-hmm.
Did you kind of get Lord of the Ringsy vibes from the way a lot of this stuff looked and felt?
Oh, absolutely. And there was a couple things that really stood out to me as well. And again, I don't know if this was like inspiration from Tolkien when the book series was written, but Moraine was talking about in one age called the Third Age, which may not be as like super specific because there are three ages in Lord of the Rings, and majority of what we see from the Hobbit in Lord of the Rings is the Third Age. And a wind rose in the mountains of misty mountains.
Misty Mountains, yeah.
But there's a line that Tom says that's very similar to Gandalf. Like Gandalf's talking to Frodo and Tam's talking to Rand, and he says, all we can do is the best we can with the life that's given to us. And obviously, like, it's not like a complete plagiarism whatsoever, but they're different and both similar at the same time. And I really appreciated that. Like, I thought most of the dialogue in this and these 3 episodes were pretty well done too. So
Yeah.
I'm sure the books are, equally as good. So
yeah, so that's a good Ben question. Is the dialogue, is a lot of it lifted straight out of the books, or is a lot of this modified for TV?
It's a lot of it's modified. It's
Okay.
one of those things, and one of the things that actually stood out to me the most was of all things, the cursing. So there's our curses don't exist in the world of Robert Jordan.
Interesting.
So they have their own style curses, but again, it's one of those things where you just look at it and you go, well, yeah, you could do your best to get a viewer to understand the new world, but let's just shortcut it because you've got 14 books worth of materials. Several of the books are well over 1,000 pages.
So many.
Ooh, definitely going 8 seasons.
Books, and then like a novella too at the end or something. Isn't that?
There's a prequel that came out sometime in the middle. Yeah. It's actually I don't know if they're going to weave it into the show, but it's the story of how Moraine met Lan.
Oh, okay, cool.
That's pretty cool.
I'm actually interested in that because I feel like their relationship is relationship, but not relationship. At least the way the show is presenting it, and he kind of looks like he would die for her. So
yeah, and that's the whole point of a warder. So you're getting that across to you. The bond between a warder and his Aes Sedai is just. It's just the other way around. An Aes Sedai and her warder is one of those really interesting dynamics that we're going to discover throughout the show, where for the most part, and there are going to be exceptions that will come later as we learn more about the Aes Sedai, it is a consensual, non-sexual relationship.
Yeah, like they get naked in a hot tub together and nothing happens.
Nope. She makes sure it's a hot tub.
Yeah,
that's just like, that could be a little warmer.
Could be warmer. Yeah, that was pretty.
That
cool.
was really cool. I was like, oh dang, she's like that. All right.
Yeah.
No, and I appreciate that because we do see it in episode 3 when Nynaeve says, "This is going to sting" or "This is going to hurt," right? Mm-hmm. And which I was maybe expecting him to kind of show a little bit more hurt. Maybe I don't know, but I'm sure it did. I'm curious to see what else really happens.
Yeah, my guess is that he's just tough as nails. He looks like a badass. But
he does.
So this first episode, we have a lot of chaos and destruction. There's this big battle, and then it ends with the 4 of them: Matt, Rand, Perrin, and Egwene. How do I pronounce? Is it Egwene? Egwene. Sure. Yeah. Comment below, like, subscribe. They all say, okay, maybe this lady's right. Maybe we are all in danger and need to get out to this White Tower. And they take off with Moraine and Lan, which takes us into episode 2, which is entitled Shadows Waiting. And my horrible notes say the White Cloaks really don't like the Aes Sedai. Moraine pulls a Titanic. Shadar Logoth was a bad place, and Mashadar tried to eat them, and then the group ends up separated. So, Ben, you mentioned that the first episode is roughly the first 4 chapters of the first book. What does episode 2 do in terms of its book structure?
Yeah, it's right about it's probably 2 to 3 chapters. Shadar Logoth is it happens, and it goes into a lot more detail. It's actually Rand and Matt who decide to go exploring and adventuring in their first big city ever. And Matt consciously picks up the knife, so it's not like he's not scared away and has to take it with him.
Right.
Keep an eye on that knife. That's
good to know.
That was a big moment. That was something.
It seemed like it. Yeah.
Social media people were nice enough to show us in advance.
That's fun. Yeah,
the
it
ruby
had like
dagger.
that Indiana Jonesy kind of shimmer when that box
Yeah.
first opened and the knife was shown. So that's
Yes.
cool. Awesome.
Madashar is as terrifying as I had imagined.
In my head, I was just like, the floor is lava. The floor is lava.
Yeah.
But it was like the walls and the floor and everything in between.
Everything. Yeah. This thing knows
Yeah,
no
it's
limits.
pretty. And so it's evil, but in a different way than the Trollocs and the Fade and the Dark One.
Mm.
It's a city that decided to the best way to fight the Dark One during the war was to become as unfeeling and as hard and cold as possible. And they did that so-called in the service of the light, but in doing so, they just sort of became so paranoid that they turned in on each other, on themselves, and just consumed themselves. So that's why it's a city in disrepair, and it's just been abandoned. It's
Cool.
that was pretty trippy. It also gives you an idea of just what Amazon's willing to do for this series, because that's your first look at a city. We haven't seen a city yet, and the Wheel of Time has several great cities.
Nice.
And they put a lot of it on screen there, and with not a single person in it.
Yeah, and massive sets too. Like the interior sets were super big, like really tall ceilings and everything. I was very impressed with it. I thought it was cool. Nick, what'd you think of this episode? Did you think that it was gonna maybe like pull back and slow down a little bit and then hit you in the face with this stuff, or what?
I kind of figured, especially because the Trollocs they didn't slow down; they were still following. Right, they had to cross the river, which again reminded me of when the hobbits are being chased by the Nazgul, and they have to cross the Buckleberry Ferry, and
that seems so funny. I love
that
scene.
It
it's
is,
great.
but like, but again, like it just leaves like really great vibes from the show and from the series too. And I think it really kept that pace, that momentum of excitement from what's happening to our characters here. Again, like the whole meaning behind Shadar Logoth was I thought it was really cool, because it did also remind me of the Army of the Dead in Lord of the Rings, that Aragorn goes to, it says, "I'm the king," right? So you work for me now. But that whole story, they abandoned their aid, right? And then we hear the story of about Manetheren, and how the Shadar Logoth promised aid to them, and they never showed up. And then they blocked themselves into this town to themselves. And I'm like, and then to become what Ben explained, and I was like, damn, that is so cool. At the same time, like, it's
stuff.
super messed up, but man, that's super cool. Like, so I love to hear lore like that. And that was such a great monologue from Rosamund, or Moraine rather. So just to kind of hear all that, and I kind of wondered if that was in the book or what.
Yeah, Weep for Manetheren is a straight lift from the book, and it's
nice.
It was really well delivered and really well done. We also get a little bit of backstory on the Aes Sedai. They're not super all powerful. They've got some they got some nerfing going on.
Ben, do you know
they have to follow?
Robert Jordan has passed away, right?
He had, yes.
Is his estate involved in the production of this show?
Yes. His wife is involved, very much so. She's actually very close with the fans too. They like her, she likes them.
Cool. That actually makes a lot of sense, where you see the stuff that the straight book lifts, being very respectful to the source material, but modifying it in a way as such that makes sense for television. I think that's almost like blow for blow the structure that they're doing for the Lord of the Rings show that's coming out next year too. Like the Tolkien estate is involved. They've given them like their playbook of what they can do. So I think it seems like that's a winning formula so far. I thought, like Nick kind of alluded to, a lot of the lore and the world building that, especially in this second episode, it's done a lot to really just kind of almost like drown you in everything that's going on. They're not afraid to say, "Hey, audience, keep up," and we're going to throw a whole bunch of stuff at you. We don't care, if you need to go back and rewatch River, which I thought was really cool. I also thought diving like straight into cutting an Aes Sedai's hands off and burning her on a stake in the very first scene of the second episode,
dude,
immediately made the threat of those white cloaks like super instant, which was fantastic.
Talk about a hook.
Say it again.
I was going to talk about a hook to get you into that second episode.
Dude. No, I didn't know what their I think the guy's name was Amon Valda or whatever, and they're called questioners, right?
Yep.
And I'm like, is that a witch? Is that the Aes Sedai? Because like he's got a collection of those rings
rings, yeah.
And
questioners are no joke, man. The confession that they pull from you from their questioning, they're going to get it out of you whether it's true or not. They're absolutely brutal, and you see that. I mean, not just from the cutting off of the hands and the burning at the stake, but his choice of dinner.
Yeah.
Yes,
that was
yes,
intense.
Indeed. so I guess now that we made this comparison from the first episode, or talking about the first episode, where the staring is what was done in the books, but it's all the hand gestures, right? So that makes sense to cut off the hands. But was there any sort of these like executions in the book from against the Aes Sedai? Or is that new?
Really?
That's pretty new. You'll hear about white cloaks or some people maybe getting killing an Aes Sedai off screen, so to speak, in the book, but you never get the death of an Aes Sedai like that, especially not at the hands of the white cloaks.
That's interesting though, because now in the first episode you've got the battle where Moiraine pulls the lightning out of the sky. You've got this execution, which are both like kind of handled off screen in the books, but because of the spectacle, they're brought into the television show. I think that's actually a pretty neat way to modify it.
Yeah. Also fantastic shorthand.
Yeah.
You need to know some guy's a bad guy. You have him kick a cat in the first scene you're introduced to him. You want to make someone good, that person's up in a tree saving a cat from being scared. You want to make sure that the white cloaks are nobody to be trifled with. You often Aes Sedai in the first 10 minutes you meet them.
Yeah, and speaking of shorthand, that one Aes Sedai is short 2 hands. So they're on a table next to her burning body. So awesome. So let's go into episode 3 just for the sake of time. This one was entitled "A Place of Safety." Episode 2 leaves us where the group is split in 3. They do the whole Empire Strikes Back routine. Matt and Rand end up in a village. They meet a dude named Tom who sings and is very proficient at throwing knives. We get an encounter with a dark friend for the very first time. There are wolves, and then Nynaeve turns out she's alive, and
she is.
She helps, and she is pissed.
She is real pissed.
But she ends up with Lan and Moiraine, and she kind of begrudgingly helps keep Moiraine alive. Which is pretty fun stuff. So Ben, hit us with book knowledge as you did for these first 2 episodes, so that way we don't sound like complete morons.
Pretty much this is another one of those real straight lift kind of things. Nynaeve was not attacked by Trollocs in the books. She just happens to go on after and is able to track them, even through Lan's hiding their trail very, very carefully. The scene with Moiraine and Egwene is a straight lift from the books, where we are learning how to channel for the first time, and that some people are going to do it whether they want to or not. Some people can be taught, and some people are just you and me and all of us. Especially the line, the first two lights were mine, the last one was yours alone. Straight lift from the book. Cool. Very powerful line in the book, to show us that Egwene is a little bit more than she seems.
Yeah. I think I texted you, and because you were asking me like my thoughts on some of the characters or whatever, and the show is making you think that she is 100% the chosen one, the dragon reborn of sorts, right? But I don't know if that's going to be just, like a TV red herring type thing, or how it ends up going in the books. Of course, I don't want to know because I want to enjoy it when it happens in the show. But it kind of feels like they're putting her in the chosen one position, even though the actor who plays Rand looks more like Anakin Skywalker than probably anyone I've seen outside of Hayden Christensen. It's
he really does. Yeah.
And he's the one with the blade too.
And he's the one with a little bit of an angry streak, I think, too.
Yep.
He yells, I think it was in episode 2, he gets into a shouting fight with Moraine, and he shows a little bit of gusto there. So so let's talk about Tom, because Tom was not what I expected him to be at all. And I'm curious if Tom is the same in the books as he is in the show, or is he a little bit different?
The same, but older.
Really?
Tom is a Gleeman. Yes, Tom is a Gleeman, or your basic general, your third generation D&D bard.
Yeah.
So he's got in the books slightly different musical instruments, and the only reason I bring it up, because it seems like such a minor detail, is Robert Jordan beats you over the head with his flute and his harp. His flute and his harp that he carries with him. But other than having long white bushy mustaches, Tom from the books is Tom in the show.
Nice.
He can command an entire room of the entire common room of an inn, and then he'll make a knife appear in somebody's throat from a block away.
Yeah.
And not feel remorse.
Yeah,
he's got the highest accuracy rolls from D&D.
Yeah, for real. I don't know. Ben, have you watched Foundation?
Not through the finale, but I'm up to date.
Okay,
mostly.
But you saw the spot where Farah got the arrow through the back of the neck. I was like, man, this is like 2 different shows I'm watching that just murked somebody in the exact same way.
Same spot, yeah.
And man, it is a brutal way to go. And
yeah,
that's one thing with this show. Ben, when you and I were talking about it before it came out, we saw that it's got like a TV 14 rating. I was kind of wondering, like, how far are they going to go with some of the language, some of the violence, whatever.
Right.
It was considerably more violent than I expected it to be, and I was here for it. I thought it was great. So
yeah, it's really well done, and it's done in service of the story. It's not just brutal for the sake of being brutal.
Yeah. It was definitely cool for sure. Nick, what did you think of Perrin's nightmare with the wolves and the dude with the red eyes?
I was actually just gonna ask Ben that question as far as what significance was there in the book about the wolves, because as far as I could tell, it really kind of helped drive Perrin and Egwene on the path. But at the same time, I'm like, there's got to be more to it, because he had a dream with the wolves, and then like the Dark Lord or whatever shows up in it, and like we saw it in Rand's dream, and Moran's like, if it ever happens again, let me know ASAP.
Tell me.
But she's not there, so I'm like, did he just fall for something he shouldn't have, or like, is he kind of being spied on? Are the wolves good? Are the wolves bad? So I'm really curious about that.
Yeah, wolves are significant, and dreams are significant. So pay attention to what happens in a dream. Dreams are going to become very significant, as are the wolves.
Premonitions, you say?
Very,
yeah,
very. But they are, at least in this episode, you can tell they're very aware of what they're doing. They're driving Egwene and Perrin to the traveling people, the Tinkers, the Tuathon, and that actually is the titular place of safety.
Oh, okay. Got it.
Okay.
That's cool.
So the place of safety is being with the traveling people.
Interesting.
So, spoiler alert: they're not going to get killed. not
yet.
Yeah. And actually, I was sort of thinking, as I was thinking about a place of safety, and then the shadow waits. I'm fairly certain. I have to double check. Apologies to all of our listeners for not having done my research.
Yes, all 12 of them.
But I'm pretty sure that each one of the show titles is a chapter title.
Oh, cool.
That's pretty cool.
So I'm thinking about, when I started rereading, after I realized, holy crap, the Wheel of Time is actually going to make it on my television sometime soon.
Surreal.
Yeah. It is a little surreal.
How many times have you read all 14 books?
5 or 6.
Dang, really? I thought it was
Nice.
gonna be like 3, 5 or
No,
6.
it's 5 or 6. And then I used to, anytime a new book came out, I used to do a full reread. So the
Okay.
beginning books I've read a lot more.
Sure. Yeah. How old were you when you first read the first one?
14.
So this is like a
almost
20-year type
21
thing
years.
for you.
Yeah, yeah. So it's,
That's so
I
cool.
got grounded a lot in high school, and grounded meant no TV, no going outside to play with friends, no video games, no computer. So I
Books.
read a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, unfortunately, I can't read, so TV is it for me.
Could be
My
awkward with the
college degree
subtitles.
is in music. Subtitles are a foreign language for me. I read them incorrectly. I pronounce them incorrectly on the YouTube show. It's just all part of a vicious cycle. So, I don't know about you guys, but Amazon has done this now with The Boys when it dropped season 2. They did this with the first season here.
Yeah.
Apple has done this with The Shrink Next Door. They did it with Foundation. This whole idea of dropping a couple episodes during the first weekend and then switching to the weekly drops. I think this is an absolutely genius way of doing things, because if I had only watched the first episode, I'd have been like, okay, yeah, that was cool. Maybe I'll watch next week when it comes out. But by having all 3 of them and watching them almost kind of like a miniature movie, by the time the third one was over, I was like, I'm very excited for Friday to get here, to be able to check out whatever happens next. I don't know if you guys feel the same way, but I think that it's almost like, yes, there are 3 episodes of a TV show, but it almost feels like its own separate thing before we get into the weekly TV show model.
Our heroes will return in Avengers 4.
Yeah.
Next week, which is the great thing about television. You don't have to wait 3 years.
Yeah, and I like it. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Ben.
Oh no, I'll you, Nick. I'll go after.
I was gonna say no. I mean, we've discussed it before, but I like this much better than just here's everything, have fun, And then there's so much that gets lost, especially with something like this that comes from an amazing 14 book series. You need to digest it, and there's things that are going to get overlooked. And again, when you make these comparisons, and again, it's like grateful that we know someone like Ben to really help chime in and show and talk about what the source material is.
Yeah.
Because and it's like Foundation, we were just walking with our heads cut off for the most part.
Oh yeah.
And
bunch of bumbling miscreants.
Yeah, and so it's and even with other shows, I mean, like it's kind of like like The Witcher, for example, right?
Sure. Yeah.
That's going to be what, eight episodes all at once. So to digest it and then go, what's from what book and everything. Right. And I'm sure a lot's going to get overlooked, and you can't spend the time talking about it and kind of give it that, like, it's credit for what gets, translated from page to screen.
Yep.
So I like the 2 or 3 episode one at a time, and then the weekly.
Yeah. Cause that's like enough to get you invested in the characters and in the story. And then after that, the weekly drops. 1, you get the time to digest it, like you mentioned, Nick. And then 2, it stays in the news cycle. Like people that watch the show are now talking about it for 5 or 6 weeks instead of talking about it for 1 weekend. And then 2 years later, when the next season comes out, being like, oh God, I completely forgot everything that happened in that show because I burned through it in 2 days,
Yep.
So especially, Ben, I think you can probably back me up on this. This is a lot of thick stuff. There's a lot of lore. There's a lot of world. There are a ton of characters. If they dropped all 8 episodes at once and asked people to binge, I think people would either their brains would click off, or they just would get to a point where they just stopped taking everything in and it would just be like, oh, look at the pretty landscapes, which that does a disservice to the books at that point. So
agreed 100%. It's a lot of world building, and they get to do that right up front with us. We know we got an idea what the world is, but now we've got some questions, and crap, we have to wait till next week for those questions to get answered, and then the week after that. So it builds that anticipation. It gets the water cooler talk, even if your water cooler is 3 guys in a virtual room. And it gives you a chance to sort of think, and I think it's really important, and something that made other fantasy series so successful.
Sure. Yep. Agreed 100%. And Amazon's very happy with it. They announced today that this was their #1 series debut for 2021. So more people have watched this than anything else that has debuted on Amazon this year. And they also said that it was in their top 5 streaming debuts of all time on Amazon Prime Video. So that puts them up there with your The Boys, Marvelous Miss Maisel, Jack Ryan, The Expanse. The list goes on and on. This is a pretty heavy hitter for them. It turns out that there's a big fan base from the books that wants to see this, and then they did a pretty good job marketing and getting us unsullied folks like Nick and myself to check it out. So,
Yeah.
Ben, I'm going to ask you this. I know this is a loaded question, considering this has been 21 years of buildup for you. But if you had to put a score out of 10 on these first 3 episodes, what would you give it?
It's a solid 8.
Okay.
It delivered. Any quibbles I have with the show about, are all in understanding of this had to be adapted for television and things are going to get cut. It's a solid 8. Because I think, Nick, I'm going to steal from you. I believe you said during, was it Ted Lasso? I'm going to call it an 8 because I want to be able to reserve going higher later in the season.
Yeah.
We do that a lot here.
Yeah.
All right, Nick, out of 10, what are you giving this one?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a solid 8.
Sure.
It gave us a lot. There was a lot for us as newbies to absorb, to think about, to wonder. Visually it was fantastic.
Yeah.
Great acting, especially from Miss Pike. And yeah, I really enjoy the world that we're actually getting to see. So, again, I think from here it'll potentially just keep going up, especially with some of the things that Ben has hinted at for us to pay attention to kind of keep an eye on. So
sounds like there are some twists and turns that are on their way, which is exciting. So I'll go 8 as well. We'll make it an 8 across the board. I was excited for this one, but not like 100% sold. And then after these first 3 episodes, I was pretty well invested and excited to see where it goes. And I can't even imagine. Like, I know this is not related to Wheel of Time, but the budget for Lord of the Rings is like 3 or 4 times this. If this looks as good as it does, I can't even.
So ridiculous.
What that show is going to be like.
So ridiculous.
It's going to be pretty incredible. But
it's going to be really exciting stuff.
But yeah, so now these 3 episodes are done. The weekly drops are going to come after that, and we're going to review each individual episode every week. So if you stick around with us, go ahead and click that subscribe button. There will be weekly Wheel of Time reviews. That is going to wrap things up for this one. Thanks for sticking around. I know it's a long video, but it's 3 episodes with a lot of heavy lore and world building to cover, and we were excited to do it. So drop us a comment below. Let us know your thoughts. Make fun of me for butchering all the names, and I will personally respond to every comment that comes through. Also, thank Ben in the comments for bringing a modicum of intelligence to this show that we've never had before. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. Check us out on social media. We're on Twitter and Instagram at Real Heroes Show. Some other videos we have on the channel this week. We covered the Foundation finale. We had a Shrink Next Door video, a Finch movie review. We're going to be talking about Hawkeye on Disney Plus. We got 2 episodes of that this week. And then we've got a couple other things coming down the pike too. So please stay tuned for all of that and so much more. Until next time, we'll see you guys in the next video.
Peace.
Cheers.